hope everybody knew that. Everybody is shaking their head, they knew that. So starting as of January 1st of this year, if you are going to earn your Eagle, you have to have the Cookie Merit Badge earned. Okay? That's number one. If you've already earned it, they actually have now the merit badges with the silver circle around them. So if you've earned it before and the boy wants to go out and buy another one and get the silver circle because it's now required, they can do that. That's not a big deal. But if they have the old one, that's fine too. So most important, Cookie Merit Badge is now required. I just had a scout that did his Eagle project in December. Didn't get his paperwork turned in by the end of the month. And now he has to do his cooking. That's right. He didn't have his Cooking Merit Badge already, so now he has to go do his cooking. Okay, the next thing is that the Merit Badge has changed. The Merit Badge pamphlet has changed and the requirements have changed. Okay? So that's probably another big change. So the way this has worked, for 2014 you can do either requirements. You can start on either requirements. Actually, let's go back. If you've already started the requirements with the previous Merit Badge, you can continue on those requirements and you can finish using those requirements. Okay?
Still counts as required?
It still counts. Right, you're just fine. So let's say I had a boy start last year at summer camp and he got through 6 of the requirements and had 3 more. He can finish those up this year, or there is really no time limit on when you have to finish those requirements. And he can do it under the old requirements.
If they started before January.
If they started before January, right. Okay? If you start from January to December of this year, you can choose. So you can do the old requirements, or you can start with the new requirements. You can actually find both pamphlets at the Scout office. You will find the old pamphlet and the new one. So if you started in this year, you can choose. Starting in 2015, you have to use the new requirements. Those will be the only ones that you're able to use. Now, I've seen both the requirements. I've looked at them both. There's not a huge difference. So I would say if you want to choose one or the other, it's not going to matter.
So what is the difference?
Well, that's what we're going to go over next. So if you've got a boy who's this year and trying to decide, do I do the old ones or do the new ones, it really isn't going to make that big a difference. It's not like they added a bunch of requirements or took away a bunch of requirements or added a bunch of time or took away. They just moved some things around.
Are the new ones updated on bsa.org?
I think they are. I actually was looking at meritbadge.org, and they are updated on that. In fact, both the old and the new are on meritbadge.org. And he usually gets his stuff right off of the BSA's website. So they are probably both. The new ones are probably on BSA as well. Yeah. Other questions before we go into what's changed? Okay. Who's very familiar with the Cookie Merit Badge? I'm a counselor. I'm very familiar with Cookie Merit Badge.
I'm teaching it.
You're teaching. Okay. So the rest of you kind of know that you have to cook some things, right? And you have to do some cooking things. Okay. Well, let's talk about the requirements that have changed, or kind of broadly what's changed, and then we'll kind of go over individually the requirements. The first one is the USDA and the government has come out with a new food. It's no longer the food pyramid. It's now called MyPlate, right? So they did it by a plate. They divided it up. So instead of using the food pyramid, in the past you had to use the food pyramid to decide what you were going to do for meals. Now you use MyPlate. Not a big deal. It puts a lot of, there's still emphasis on fruits and vegetables. It's a little bit more simplified. But that's one of the changes. The other change, and this one actually is one that I like, you no longer have to prepare the meals on consecutive days. So previously, there was a thing where you had to do like dinner, breakfast, and lunch in succession. You had to do all of those as part of the Merit Badge. You don't have to do that anymore. So you can go on one camp out and do your dinner. You can do a breakfast on another camp out and a lunch on another camp out. Okay? That's probably a big change, and that can be very helpful. There's actually a lot of more information, and you have to do more work on food allergies. So there's a lot more awareness around what kind of food allergies happen and what to do in cases like that. First aid. And then there's also some information, a lot more information on foodborne illnesses, I guess. cross-contamination, keeping raw meat. If you put raw meat on a plate, don't put cooked meat back on that. There's a lot to do with foodborne illnesses. But it's not like there was maybe 6 before, and now there's 9. So it's not like they put a huge amount. As far as food allergies, there's a new requirement about, you have to discuss with your counselor about food allergies. There is there's a lot of things, it's been more focus put on not just nutrition, but also activity level, and so there's some things that talk about caloric intake and caloric output, and having activity, and how many calories are you going to need to do for activities. So there's a little bit of that in the Cookie Merit Badge. It's not a big part. And then there's this, and this is more in the Merit Badge booklet. In the booklet, there's a lot of information about how to improve your eating habits, how to eat better, how to be more healthy. So it's not necessarily a lot of requirements that have changed in that area, but it's a lot more emphasis on being healthy and a healthy lifestyle, not just cooking and eating and having better meals. So that's at a broad level. You've got a change to a new food guide, a little bit more on food allergies and food and illnesses, foodborne pathogens, and then some emphasis on a healthy lifestyle, not so much just cooking. Okay. So any questions? We'll go over some of the individual requirements. Any questions on those? Any of that? All right. So I'm going to pull up the requirements. And I'm only going to go over the new requirements. We're going to leave the old requirements behind. If you have questions about what's different, because you know it or you want to know, we can talk about that. But I'm just going to cover some of the new requirements. So the first one is kind of first aid. So first aid for things that would happen while you're cooking. Burns, scalds, cuts, chokings, any allergic reactions. So there's first aid, and then talking about keeping your meats cool, transporting your meats correctly, keeping your food safe. And then here's where you get into the food-related illnesses. There's 9 of them that it talks about, and also food allergies. So the two things that I talked about were food-related illnesses and allergies. Those have been the first requirement. And there's 9 illnesses. There's salmonella. Well, there's a lot. But in the previous one, I think there were 6 or 7. So it's not like it's like a huge difference. So that's requirement 1. First aid, food illness, safe food handling is requirement 1. Requirement 2 is when we get into MyPlate. It used to be used the food pyramid. Now you use MyPlate to create, you give examples of foods in each food group. So somebody give me an example of, okay, so you give an example of the recommended number of daily servings and serving size. So somebody give me an example of a fruit. Banana. Peach, right? Apple, strawberry, lots of fruits, right? Vegetables, give me an example of a vegetable. Zucchini, broccoli, carrots, cauliflower, spinach. Where's potatoes fall? I don't know. That's hotly debated subject. There are college professors debating where do potatoes fall. Are they a starch or are they a vegetable? They have more vitamin C than an orange. When is it ever a starch? Okay, if it's potato chips. Give me an example of a grain. Wheat, bread, corn, oats, rye. Proteins. Bacon. Fish, beans, peanut butter,
cheese,
tuna, dairy, milk, cheese, yogurt, extreme cheese, cottage cheese, sour cream, all those things, right? So that's one of them. Give examples of those foods. And then explain why you should limit intakes of oils and sugars. And then they have to determine their daily level of activity and their caloric need. So they need to decide on a typical day, how much am I doing? How many calories do I need to take in? And then plan a day of meals for yourself, so you get enough calories. It's just planning. You don't have to actually do it. You just plan out a meal, a meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So that's number 2. Number 3, you talk about food labels, calories, fats, trans fats, cholesterol, sodium, carbohydrates, all that stuff. How to calculate total carbohydrates. Name ingredients for allergens. So this is one that I don't think was in the previous cooking, where you talk about food labels, what's in food. 4 is interesting. It has some new stuff. Talking about cooking methods, the equipment needed, and a food that can be cooked. So let's name a food that you can cook by baking. Casserole, ham, potatoes. A food you would cook by boiling. Potatoes. Let's see if we can make potatoes fit for all of them. Hot dogs, an egg, pan frying, potatoes. Hash browns. Simmering. Soups and stews, sauces. Right. Steaming. Broccoli, vegetables, potatoes. Microwaving. Potatoes. Cold pizza. Popcorn. And grilling. Everything else. Meats, steaks, burgers, vegetables. Right, and then some things, benefits of using a camp stove. Talking about leave no trace in the outdoor code. Number 5. Here's where we use My Plate again. In the past, this is where you're planning a menu for 3 full days of meals. You're planning 3 breakfasts, 3 lunches, and 3 dinners. And, this is new, 1 dessert. Yeah, that's what I thought. You have to have enough to feed yourself and 1 adult. And then you have to, this lists the equipment and utensils that you need. And that's from the old one. List the equipment and utensils needed. And then, so once you've created that list, you create a shopping list for how much food you would need. And then the cost for each meal. So I did this with my son. We actually did the list. And then we went to the store and we wrote down all the costs of what everything would cost. And then he came home and he figured out what his meal would cost. Share that with your counselor. Here you get to prepare for yourself and at least 1 adult. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a dessert. So you can do this at home. Doesn't have to be camping. This could be at home, done at home. You have to ask them to evaluate the meal on presentation and taste. I think that's a new one. Yeah, 1 through 10. And then talks about keeping your food perishable. Okay. The next one is preparing. So that's number 5. Number 6 is a menu for your patrol or a similar size group of up to 8 youth for a camping trip. It's 5 meals, 1 snack, or 1 dessert. And again, put the utensils you need. And then, so once you do it, again, you have to create a shopping list, the cost for each meal. Then you have to cook 2 of the meals, either using a lightweight stove or a low-impact fire. You have to cook it and serve it. It's up to 8 youth. It doesn't have to be 8 youth. It could be, so this would be a good camp out where you're the cook of the camp out, over a lightweight stove or over a fire. Maybe you do hot dogs. I don't know. Prepare the dessert and serve it, and you have to get it evaluated again and say the same thing. So, and this is one that, remember, you don't have to do it on consecutive days. You don't have to do it over a camp out and be the cook for dinner, breakfast, and lunch. You can do it on 3 different campouts if you want. Or you can do it at scout camp or a week scout camp. You can certainly get it in. One recommendation they say for scout camp is when you're preparing this, to use foods to prepare using food you would get from the commissary. And so usually you have an idea what the foods are, and you can prepare what you're going to do, and then you should get something similar to that. I've done it in the past where they've been close and they come back and say, well, this is what we actually got. here's what I planned for, this is what I actually got, and just changed after it and said, so this is what I did. I've been okay with that because they put forth the effort to try to do it. It wasn't just, well, here's what I got and here's what it was. All right, that's number 6. Any questions so far? We'll go through these really fast. Number 7, you plan a menu for trail hiking or backpack. A breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack. So they things that can't require refrigeration, and they're to be eaten by 3 to 5 people, including yourself. Again, list the equipment you need, list the food you need, create a shopping list, and then you have to prepare and serve 2 of the meals and 1 of the snacks on a hiking trip, on a trail hike or a backpacking trip. So this is one where you could do it on a backpacking overnighter, but it says on a trail hike, so I think you could do it if you were, if you're doing an afternoon hike. You could cook a meal for an afternoon hike, or an all-day hike, or something like that. And let's see. You have to do it over a fire or a trail stove, so again, you do this one over a lightweight stove, and everything else, right? So, very similar to what it was before as far as the number of meals, and same thing we have to do, you cannot do them on multiple days. So, questions, there's only one more requirement. Any questions on those? The last one, and this is the same as it was before, 3 career opportunities in cooking. This is a common one in merit badges. And discuss with your counselor the education, training, and experience you need. Right? So, that's a common one for career opportunities in cooking. So that's pretty much it for the requirements. So, to wrap up, so remember, beginning this year, it's required for Eagle. This year you can use either the older requirement, you can start using either the older requirements or the new requirements. If you started before this year, you can continue with the older requirements. If you start in 2015, you have to do the new requirements. So you're familiar with them. There's not a big difference. It doesn't sound like there's a big difference between the two, right?
More material, but I like the flexibility.
Yeah, so it's a thing where you got a trade-off. You're going to get more material, a little bit more material with the new requirements, but also more flexibility. So really, have them choose. If someone's going to start this year, start them on the new one maybe. Just start them on the new one, it's easier, right? It'll be easier for everybody all around. But then, going forward, in 2015, you have to go on the new one. Again, you can get the new patch if you want to, with the silver. And then, is everyone familiar with how this works? The other thing is to talk about, since it is now required, I think there's now, is it 12 merit badges that are required, or 13?
13.
The 13 that are required? Right, so there's now 13 required merit badges and 8 elective merit badges. They did not take a merit badge off the list to add cooking.